Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. Not the fantasy of winning, not the noise of celebration, but the quiet instant after everything has already changed. The moment you realize the pressure is gone, the struggle is over, and money is no longer something you chase, but something that has arrived and settled into your life. That calm certainty, that deep inner relief, is not imagination, it is the doorway. Most people think transformation begins with action, with effort, with luck appearing from the outside, but every true shift begins inward, as a feeling accepted before proof appears. When you touch that feeling, when you stop wanting and start knowing, the world reorganizes itself to match you. This is not about hoping for money, it is about becoming the person for whom money arrives naturally, unexpectedly, and in perfect timing. The moment you change what you feel to be true, you change what life is allowed to deliver. Feeling is the creative permission. Everything in life moves only after permission is granted, and that permission is never given by words, effort, or desire alone, it is given by feeling. Before anything appears in your outer world, it must first be accepted inwardly as real, natural, and done. Feeling is not emotion in the dramatic sense, it is the quiet inner agreement that says, "This belongs to me." Most people live their lives asking, begging, hoping, or waiting, unaware that nothing responds to requests, everything responds to acceptance. The moment you feel something as true, life treats it as authorized to exist. This is why some people receive money effortlessly, while others struggle endlessly, even when they work harder or want it more. Wanting is not permission, wanting implies absence. Feeling fulfilled is permission because it implies possession. The inner world does not create from effort, it creates from identity. When you feel like someone who has money, not someone who is trying to get money, circumstances rearrange themselves without strain. This is not imagination used as fantasy, it is imagination used as placement, placing yourself internally in the state you wish to experience. The body responds first. Your breathing changes, your thoughts slow, your urgency dissolves. That physical shift is evidence that permission has been granted. When you no longer feel desperate for proof, proof begins to form. Money, especially sudden money, does not arrive to tension, it arrives to calm certainty. That calm is the signature of inner ownership. You must understand this deeply. Life does not give you what you want, it gives you what you are comfortable receiving. Comfort is a feeling. If large amounts of money feel overwhelming, unreal, or unsafe, the door remains closed, not as punishment, but as protection. The inner world only allows what feels natural. Therefore, the work is not to force belief, but to normalize abundance internally. Ask yourself not, "Do I believe this can happen?" but "How would it feel if this were already normal for me?" That question shifts you from effort to embodiment. Feeling is the language of creation. Words are secondary. Affirmations without feeling are empty repetition. Feeling without words is command. The world listens to your inner state, not your outer statements. This is why moments of deep conviction often precede sudden breakthroughs. In those moments, the individual stops arguing with life and silently agrees with a new reality. That agreement is permission. Once permission is given, events move quickly, sometimes shockingly fast, because resistance has been removed. Resistance is nothing more than an inner feeling of, "This is not me," or "This is not for me." When that feeling dissolves, the path clears. Lottery money, inheritance, unexpected opportunities, windfalls, all follow the same law. They do not ask if you deserve them. They check whether you are internally aligned with receiving them. If you still feel like the one who struggles, who waits, who hopes, you remain in that loop. But when you feel like the one who receives, who is supported, who is favored by life, the pattern breaks. This shift does not require time, it requires acceptance. Time is only the delay created by resistance. The instant you feel something as already yours, time collapses around that assumption. You stop watching the clock. You stop checking results. You stop needing signs. That detachment is not indifference, it is confidence. And confidence is creative. Think of how effortlessly things move when you expect them to work out. You do not micromanage, you allow. Allowing is a feeling. It is the inner release that says, "I trust this." The universe mirrors trust with delivery. This is why forcing techniques never works long term. Forcing is fear disguised as effort. Feeling is authority disguised as calm. When you enter the feeling of financial ease, even briefly, you are stepping into a different identity. Identity is what the world responds to most. You do not attract what you want, you attract what matches who you believe you are. If you believe at a feeling level, that money comes to you in surprising ways. Life will surprise you. If you believe that money must be hard, delayed, or earned through suffering, life will obey that too. There is no judgment in this law, only precision. Feeling is the steering wheel. Change the feeling, and the direction changes automatically. The reason repetition is important is not to convince the mind, but to familiarize the body. Once the body recognizes the feeling of having, the mind stops questioning it. At that point, manifestation becomes inevitable. The door opens not with noise, not with effort, but with inner stillness. Stillness is confidence, confidence is permission. And permission is the beginning of every visible miracle. Assumption precedes evidence. Nothing in your life appears randomly, and nothing arrives as proof before it is first accepted as true within you. Evidence does not lead, it follows. The world you see is always a delayed reflection of what you have already assumed at a deeper level, not in words, but in expectation. An assumption is not something you loudly declare. It is something you quietly live from. It is the inner stance you take when no one is watching, the conclusion you have already reached about what is possible for you. Most people wait for evidence before they allow themselves to feel secure, confident, or abundant, but that waiting keeps them locked in the same pattern. Life does not reward observation, it responds to position. When you assume something to be true, reality reorganizes itself to justify that assumption. This is why two people can live in the same world, under the same conditions, and experience completely different outcomes. One assumes support, flow, and success. The other assumes struggle, delay, and disappointment. Both are correct not because of fate, but because of assumption. Assumption is the blueprint. Evidence is the construction. If you keep inspecting the empty land asking where the building is, you delay the build. But when you assume the structure already exists, construction begins automatically. Money works the same way. Sudden wealth, unexpected opportunity, and so-called luck arrive only after the individual has internally concluded, this happens for me. Not someday, not maybe, but now in principle. The assumption does not need detail. It does not need a method. It only needs acceptance. Once accepted, the outer world finds a method on its own. People often ask how something will happen, but how is not your responsibility. How belongs to the mechanics of life. Your role is to decide what is true for you. The moment you decide, the process begins. This decision is not mental force, it is inner consent. You stop debating, you stop arguing, you stop needing reassurance. That silence is assumption settling in. When assumption is active, you notice a subtle shift. You are less reactive. You are less anxious. You no longer chase confirmation. That is because the mind behaves differently when it believes something is already established. Think of how you act when you assume someone will show up. You don't panic every minute. You simply expect. Expectation is assumption in motion. And expectation shapes behavior, perception, and timing without conscious effort. This is why evidence always lags behind. It must rearrange space, time, people, and probability to match your inner conclusion. The delay is not denial, it is adjustment. If you break the assumption during that adjustment, by doubting, checking, or worrying, you interrupt the process. This is why persistence is not about repeating words, but about remaining loyal to the inner conclusion. Loyalty to an assumption means you live as though it is settled, even while appearances suggest otherwise. Appearances are not indicators, they are echoes of past assumptions. If you react emotionally to current conditions, you reinforce the old state. If you remain inwardly aligned with the new assumption, conditions must yield. This is not blind faith, it is understanding of order. Inner cause always precedes outer effect. When you assume financial ease, you unconsciously make decisions, notice opportunities, and align with circumstances that match that ease. But even more powerfully, things happen beyond your action. Calls come, information appears, timing shifts, numbers align. These are not miracles, they are confirmations. Evidence never initiates, it confirms. The reason assumption feels uncomfortable at first is because it contradicts habit. Habit is just an old assumption repeated until it feels normal. Normal is not truth, normal is familiar. When you introduce a new assumption, the body resists because it is unfamiliar, not because it is wrong. Stay with it gently. Familiarity grows with exposure. As familiarity grows, the assumption stabilizes. When it stabilizes, evidence rushes in. People who experience sudden wealth often report that they just knew beforehand, even if they couldn't explain why. That knowing was assumption crystallized. They stopped seeing wealth as unlikely and started seeing it as natural. Naturalness is the final stage of assumption. Once something feels natural, reality has no argument against it. The world mirrors what you treat as normal. If struggle is normal, struggle repeats. If ease is normal, ease expands. This is not about denying facts, it is about choosing precedents. Facts are effects. Assumptions are causes. When you give facts authority, you stay reactive. When you give assumptions authority, you become directive. Directive does not mean controlling, it means selecting. You select the state you live from, and life fills in the details. The mind does not need to believe every word you say, but it must accept the feeling behind the conclusion. That feeling is certainty without proof. Certainty is not loud, it is calm. Calmness is the sign that assumption has replaced hope. Hope waits. Assumption rests. And resting is powerful because it removes resistance. Resistance is what keeps evidence away. When resistance ends, movement accelerates. This is why impatience delays results. Impatience is the assumption that it is not working. That assumption then produces more delay. But when you assume success regardless of timing, timing adjusts to meet success. You are always assuming something, consciously or unconsciously. The question is not whether assumption works, but which assumption you are feeding. If you assume that money comes unexpectedly, life will find unexpected routes. If you assume that money is rare, life will prove scarcity. There is no neutrality. Every inner conclusion is active. Once you understand this, you stop waiting for permission from the outside. You realize permission comes from within. You stop asking, will this happen? And start living as though it already has, internally. That internal shift is the turning point. Evidence will follow because it must. Reality has no choice but to agree with the assumption you consistently inhabit. Desire chooses you first. Desire is not something you randomly pick up along the way. It is something that arrives already carrying its own fulfillment within it. Every genuine desire enters your awareness because it is seeking expression through you, not because it is teasing you or testing you. If the possibility did not exist, the desire would never have appeared. This alone changes how you relate to what you want. Most people treat desire as evidence of lack, as proof that something is missing, but desire is actually evidence of alignment in progress. It is an invitation, not a void. When a desire shows up persistently, especially one that returns again and again despite logic, circumstance, or doubt, it is signaling that a version of you already exists where that desire is fulfilled. Your task is not to chase it, but to move into agreement with it. This is where people get confused. They believe desire must be pursued, struggled for, or justified, when in truth desire only asks for acceptance. The moment you accept that a desire belongs to you, the inner tension around it dissolves. That dissolution is crucial because tension implies resistance, and resistance slows everything. When you stop fighting the desire, either by suppressing it or obsessing over it, you create space for it to unfold naturally. Think of how effortlessly basic needs are met when you don't question them. You don't feel guilty for breathing or sleeping. You don't wonder if you deserve air. In the same way, when you normalize your desire for abundance, it stops feeling extraordinary and starts feeling inevitable. This is why some people manifest dramatic financial shifts without constant techniques. They simply allow the desire to feel legitimate. Many people secretly believe their desires are too big, too unrealistic, or too selfish, and that belief quietly blocks fulfillment. Life does not judge the size of your desire, it only responds to your relationship with it. If you treat it as forbidden, it stays distant. If you treat it as natural, it moves closer. Desire does not need proof to exist, it needs permission. And permission is given when you stop arguing with yourself about whether you should want what you want. When you accept a desire fully, without conditions, your inner world begins to reorganize around it. Your thoughts shift, your expectations change, and your emotional baseline rises. You become more receptive, more aware, more aligned. This alignment is not effortful, it is relaxing. It feels like coming into agreement with yourself. And that agreement is powerful. There is a subtle confidence that emerges when you stop apologizing internally for wanting more. That confidence signals to life that you are ready to receive. Many people delay fulfillment because they believe they must earn the right to desire. But desire does not wait for permission from circumstances. It appears because the conditions for fulfillment are already seeded. Think of desire as a messenger from your future self, reminding you of what is possible when you align with a higher version of yourself. When you ignore the message, dissatisfaction grows. When you honor it, momentum builds. Desire is not demanding, it is persistent. It will keep returning until you either accept it or shrink yourself to avoid it. Shrinking never brings peace. Acceptance does. Once accepted, desire stops feeling urgent. It becomes calm, focused, and steady. Urgency is the sign of resistance. Calmness is the sign of alignment. When you feel calm about a desire, you are no longer trying to pull it toward you. You are allowing it to come to you. This is the shift from wanting to expecting. Expectation is quiet. It does not beg. It does not perform. It simply waits with confidence. That waiting is not passive, it is receptive. Receptivity is what allows fulfillment to arrive in forms you could not have planned. This is especially true with sudden money. Money that arrives unexpectedly often comes when the individual has stopped emotionally clinging to the desire and started trusting its inevitability. Trust is not blind belief, it is inner agreement. When you agree that something belongs in your life, you stop blocking it with doubt or guilt. Desire also refines you. It invites you to see yourself differently, to step into a new identity. This is why fulfilling a desire often requires an inner shift before any outer change occurs. The outer change is simply the echo. When you allow yourself to feel worthy of what you want, you change the state you are operating from. Worthiness is not earned, it is assumed. When you assume worthiness, desire moves freely. Many people confuse desire with fantasy, but fantasy is disconnected from belief, while desire is connected to potential. Fantasy feels distant. Desire feels personal. It calls you, it pulls at you, and it does so because you are capable of receiving it. Life does not plant seeds in barren soil. If the desire is there, the soil is ready. Your only responsibility is to stop doubting the seed. Nourish it with acceptance, not obsession. Obsession tightens, acceptance loosens. What loosens flows. When you no longer treat desire as a problem to solve, it becomes a path to walk. You stop asking, why do I want this? And start living from the assumption that it is already part of your story. This changes your posture, your decisions, and your timing. You become less reactive to setbacks because you no longer see them as denials. You see them as adjustments. Desire fulfilled rarely follows a straight line, but it always follows alignment. Alignment begins when you stop resisting the desire itself. Let it be there without judgment. Let it feel real without proof. Let it exist without explanation. That allowance is powerful. It signals readiness. And readiness is what turns desire into experience. The moment you realize that desire chose you first, you stop chasing it, and that is when it starts chasing you. Inner acceptance ends the chase. Most people spend their lives chasing money, chasing opportunities, chasing signs that life is finally about to change, without realizing that the chase itself is the very thing keeping what they want at a distance. Chasing implies separation. It assumes that what you desire is outside of you, ahead of you, or withheld from you, and that assumption quietly reinforces delay. Inner acceptance is the moment the chase ends. It is not giving up on desire. It is giving up the belief that desire is missing. When you accept something inwardly as already settled, the nervous urgency around it dissolves, and that dissolution creates space for movement. Life does not respond to pursuit, it responds to permission. Permission is granted when you stop emotionally running toward the outcome and instead allow yourself to feel as though you have arrived. Arrival is a feeling, not an event. It is the calm that follows certainty. Most people misunderstand acceptance, thinking it means settling for less or pretending to be satisfied with unwanted circumstances. In truth, inner acceptance has nothing to do with external conditions and everything to do with internal agreement. You can accept the state of being wealthy without denying your current bank balance. Acceptance does not argue with facts, it simply refuses to give them authority over identity. When identity shifts, facts follow. The chase keeps identity anchored in lack. Acceptance moves identity into fulfillment. When you stop chasing, something remarkable happens. Your attention returns to the present moment. The present is where all power exists. The future is only accessed through the present state you occupy. If you occupy the present as someone waiting, the future reflects waiting. If you occupy the present as someone who already has, the future mirrors possession. This is why so many techniques fail. They are performed from the state of chasing. Repeating words while feeling incomplete only strengthens the feeling of incompletion. Inner acceptance is different. It is quiet. It is private. It is the inner decision that says, I am done trying to make this happen. I am now allowing it to be. Allowing is not passive. It is confident non-interference. It is trusting the process because you trust your position within it. When you accept something inwardly, you stop scanning the environment for confirmation. That scanning is subtle resistance. It says, I don't believe yet. When belief settles, the scanning stops. You no longer check numbers compulsively. You no longer replay doubts. You no longer need reassurance. This inner stillness is magnetic. It signals readiness. Money, especially unexpected money, often arrives when the individual has emotionally moved on from needing it to validate their worth or security. Not because they stopped wanting it, but because they stopped using it as proof of self-value. The moment money is no longer tied to your sense of worth, it flows more freely. Inner acceptance also changes how you respond to delay. Delay stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like adjustment. You remain calm because your inner conclusion is not threatened by timing. Timing only matters when you doubt the outcome. When you accept the outcome as inevitable, timing becomes flexible. Flexibility accelerates results. The chase is rigid, acceptance is fluid. Fluidity allows life to find the easiest route. Many people unknowingly block their own manifestations by micromanaging the process. They try to control when, how, and from where their desire will arrive. This control is rooted in fear. Fear says, if I don't manage this, it won't happen. Acceptance says, this is already handled. That difference is profound. When you accept, you release the need to control. When you release control, life steps in with intelligence far greater than your own planning. Opportunities appear that you could not have predicted. People enter your life unexpectedly. Circumstances shift without effort. These are not coincidences. They are responses to inner acceptance. Acceptance also heals impatience. Impatience is the emotional proof of doubt. It asks, why isn't it here yet? Acceptance answers, it is already mine, therefore it cannot be late. When you truly accept something, you stop measuring time. You live your life, and while you live, things align. This is why people often receive breakthroughs when they are least obsessed. Obsession tightens, acceptance loosens. What is loosened can move. What is tightened resists flow. Inner acceptance does not mean you stop taking action in the world. It means your actions are no longer desperate. They become natural, inspired, and timely. There is a world of difference between action taken to get something and action taken because you are aligned. The first is exhausting. The second is effortless. Acceptance also protects you from disappointment. When you accept internally, you are not emotionally dependent on any single event or outcome. You know that the essence of what you desire is already secured at the level that matters most. This emotional security allows you to remain open rather than guarded. Openness attracts, guarding repels. Many people sabotage their own progress by oscillating between hope and doubt. Acceptance stabilizes. It anchors you in certainty, and certainty is powerful because it removes friction. The outer world moves fastest when there is no inner resistance. Think of acceptance as stepping out of the way. You stop blocking your own path. You stop arguing with life. You stop trying to prove yourself. You simply become available. Availability is the true signal of readiness. Life responds to availability, not effort. When you are available to receive, you do not chase, you attract. And attraction is not something you do, it is something you allow. Inner acceptance is the moment you stop asking, when will it happen, and start living as though it already has emotionally. That emotional shift is the finish line of the inner journey. Once crossed, the outer journey unfolds on its own. The chase ends not because you gave up, but because you finally arrived within yourself. Money responds to identity, not effort. Money does not respond to how hard you try, how much you struggle, or how badly you need it. Money responds to who you believe yourself to be. Effort is visible, identity is invisible, and yet identity is the true command center of your financial experience. Two people can take the same actions, apply the same strategies, and face the same conditions, yet one moves forward with ease while the other meets resistance. The difference is not luck or intelligence, it is self-concept. Identity is the role you are playing internally, the story you quietly accept as true about yourself. When you identify as someone who struggles financially, life faithfully supplies situations that confirm struggle. When you identify as someone who is supported, favored, and naturally prosperous, life reorganizes to reflect that assumption. Money follows the path of least resistance, and identity determines where resistance exists. If receiving large sums feels unnatural, undeserved, or unsafe at an identity level, no amount of effort will override that. Effort can produce temporary results, but identity governs permanence. This is why some people experience brief financial success and then lose it. They have not shifted who they are being. The outer gain clashes with the inner identity, and the system self-corrects. True financial change begins when your identity expands to include abundance as normal. Normal is key. The mind does not resist what it considers normal. It resists what it considers foreign. When wealth feels foreign, it stays temporary or distant. When wealth feels familiar, it stays and grows. Identity is shaped by feeling, repetition, and inner dialogue. It is not changed by force, but by gentle assumption. You do not become wealthy by declaring it once. You become wealthy by living from the feeling that it is natural for you to be supported by life. This feeling alters how you move through the world. You stop making decisions from fear. You stop settling. You stop sabotaging opportunities. You begin to expect favorable outcomes. Expectation subtly influences behavior, timing, and perception. You notice opportunities others overlook. You respond differently to challenges. You are less reactive and more composed. Composure is a sign of internal wealth. Money is attracted to composure because composure signals capacity. Capacity is the ability to receive without collapsing emotionally. Many people want money, but few feel emotionally capable of holding it. Identity answers the question, can I handle this? When the answer is yes, money stays. When the answer is no, money avoids or escapes. This is not punishment, it is alignment. Money amplifies who you already are. If your identity is rooted in insecurity, money magnifies insecurity. If your identity is rooted in stability, money magnifies stability. This is why inner work precedes outer wealth. Identity also dictates your relationship with risk, chance, and opportunity. Someone who identifies as lucky does not wait for proof of luck. They expect it. That expectation changes how they engage with opportunities that involve uncertainty. They participate without anxiety. Anxiety constricts flow. Ease invites it. Even something as seemingly random as a lottery responds to identity, because identity influences participation, timing, and emotional detachment. Detachment is not indifference, it is confidence. Confidence is the emotional signature of someone who trusts their position in life. Money recognizes that signature. Effort, on the other hand, often carries desperation. Desperation repels because it signals lack. Identity carries calm authority. Authority attracts. When you shift identity, effort naturally decreases. You still take action, but the action feels lighter. You are no longer trying to prove yourself. You are expressing yourself. Expression is powerful because it flows from authenticity. Authenticity is alignment. Identity also shapes how you interpret outcomes. A setback to someone with a scarcity identity feels like confirmation of failure. The same setback to someone with an abundance identity feels temporary and informational. This difference in interpretation determines whether you persist or retreat. Persistence rooted in identity is effortless because it is not forced. You continue because it feels natural to continue. This is why changing identity is more effective than changing circumstances. Circumstances are effects. Identity is cause. When you address cause, effects must change. You do not need to fight circumstances, you outgrow them. Outgrowing happens internally first. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to begin seeing yourself as someone who is favored by life. Favor is not arrogance, it is trust. Trust that life supports you. Trust that opportunities come to you. Trust that money flows through multiple channels. This trust relaxes the nervous system, and a relaxed system is receptive. Receptivity is essential for receiving sudden or large sums of money. Shock and overwhelm are signs of misalignment. Calm appreciation is a sign of readiness. Identity prepares you emotionally for what is coming. When identity and opportunity meet, results are smooth. When they clash, results are chaotic or short-lived. This is why the inner work cannot be skipped. You cannot bypass identity with techniques. Techniques are tools, identity is the hand that uses them. Without a shift in identity, techniques become rituals without power. With a shift in identity, even simple thoughts become commands. The world listens to who you are being, not what you are doing. When you begin to see yourself as someone who naturally receives money in expected and unexpected ways, your behavior aligns effortlessly. You do not force optimism, you embody it. You do not chase money, you allow it to find you. You do not fear loss, you trust continuity. This trust changes everything. It changes how long money stays, how it grows, and how it moves in your life. Ultimately, money is a mirror. It reflects your relationship with yourself. Change the reflection by changing the source. Become the person for whom money makes sense. Become the identity that feels at home with abundance. When you do, effort fades into the background and money responds, not because you tried harder, but because you finally aligned with who you truly are.